Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania is still well underway. The Florida Mutineers now have a team, a 4-man roster, an entirely new one we're going to dive into here in a second. But iLLeY is not there, still on OpTic as it stands. There are very few teams that are even interested or willing to get iLLeY on their roster. Will he end up anywhere before the Major 3 qualifiers begin? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, it is the day for the St. Martin of sim racing. FaZe SimSix is in Katowice for the ESL R1 kickoff tournament, I'm guessing. Tweets this out yesterday, made it to Katowice at media day, practice day today. Flight got cancelled on Wednesday though, so another unfortunate circumstance for, of course, subletters had it right at Major 2, but here he is, so no practice before racing tomorrow at Spa. So, well, not at Spa, but on the Spa track on the racing game. It won't matter much since I'm amongst sim racing gods, but looking forward to the challenge of reaching them by the end of the season nonetheless. So, Kriv is, you got to respect this guy, because it's funny, right? You look at some of these old school pros, it's not just the case in sports as well, and also in esports, where like a guy like Kriv is one of the most competitive guys you're ever going to find anywhere. Obviously in the Call of Duty esports realm as well, but this guy can't retire for that long without wanting to take up some other competitive aspect, right? So it's pretty cool that he's doing this. Whether he can be competitive, I don't know, because he's clearly bricking it in this video right here, because he comes in and says, look, I've not really had any practice. I'm against like legit sim racers. He's never obviously done this professionally before. He's done it as a hobby, and obviously he drives his Porsche on track days and stuff. But, this is a completely different level of competition. And Krim's sitting there like, oh my God, like, I hope I don't crash. I hope I don't, get taken out or take somebody out or whatever. So, look, Krim's going to have to ease into this. Hopefully in the long term it works out for him. But, if he doesn't get smoked this weekend, that'd be very impressive. So I believe they're in action rather soon. I think there's maybe a brand new Twitter or Twitch account like ESL R1 or something where they'll be streaming this today. But the first races are today with Krim involved. Of course, he's got some good teammates, so he's not required to, fry. But he's definitely a bit nervous here, and who can blame him, right? Because it's a completely new adventure for Krim, but definitely going to be keeping up with how he gets on. And they did the media day yesterday, right? So, some pretty cool images from the big lip bandit there in Katowice right now. Let's talk Rostermania then. So firstly, this from Arcitys confirming it seems that there are no changes coming from two teams because, as well, you can see in the top left-hand corner, actually, London Scrim 10th of February, as in yesterday. So pretty much leaking here. Okay, whatever. Nice clip. I don't really care about the clip. I'm interested in the rosters. So we can see here JoeDeceives exceed Arcitys in Assault. So sticking with that team of 4, as I say, I think there are some upgrades for Los Angeles Guerrillas down the line. Some teams making moves, and I've got to give credit to a team like Florida Mutineers. Yes, you might disagree with the decisions they're making, whether you think their changes are actually going to be good or not, but at least they're trying right. Florida know they are on the borderline of not making it to the World Championship. I feel like if they stuck with that roster, they almost certainly would not have made the World Championship. So they're trying to pack a bunch. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I don't really care. I'm happy that a team's actually giving it a go to try and improve. Other teams aren't. Los Angeles Guerrillas, maybe they're good enough to make it anyway. That might be arguable. London, though, man, this team, they should be better, I think, than they are. But, man, I can't see this team going anywhere. They've got, 30 CDL points right now. Porlex, Scraps, Nasty, and Asim. They're not buying anyone out. They're not changing rosters. It seems to be almost like a surge situation where the vibes at some point are just going to be ultra chalked beyond repair. So, we'll see. But, this Arcitys clip shows JoeDeceives exceed Arcitys Assaults, Porlex, Scraps, Nasty, and Asim, as in these two teams that have struggled a fair bit, to be fair, at least, on land, let's just say, are not making any changes after all. Now, one team that is making changes, though, are the Florida Mutineers, but few teams are, compared to, OpTic are, of course, they came 4th. A lot of the other top teams won't be, and even some of the bottom tier teams aren't making changes either, so it makes things more tricky for a guy like iLLeY, who's trying to find a next destination. Now, Florida Mutineers have made some changes, and I'm really happy what they've done here, actually. So they did some trials over the last couple of days. They decided Capsule was the man for them. This is honestly a no-brainer. I'm surprised. I mean, okay, Vegas have no money, but to be fair, also Florida, they don't have much money either, but they're still making this move. Capsule's been signed. They brought him in. I'm surprised, honestly, that Vegas didn't go for this, because to me, Capsule, especially after he subbed in for Thieves, was clearly kind of the go-to man, I think, for an SMG in challenges, and Florida have come in quite quickly and signed him. They've also signed Fellow, though, and this is actually really cool for Fellow, because I know that he was going to give it one more year of competing before he hang up the sticks and goes into coaching or something. An absolute OG COD player. Been around for years. You guys might remember, if you're kind of newer newer fans him playing for Dallas Empire in the 2020 season or 2021 season, I guess it was, in Cold War, right, when he subbed in for that team when they dropped Huke and all the madness before they got Vivid. Fellow was there briefly. He wasn't, the ideal player for that team and the ideal role and all this type of stuff, but it worked out reasonably well while he was in that roster. He also does have the leadership elements, of course. He won at the most recent Challengers event with Dan Ghosty. So Ghosty got picked up, and I thought, okay, could Fellow maybe come to be OpTic's coach? That might happen down the line, but there's another option we'll see here in a second. But it's cool that Fellow's getting a chance here, because I don't think he wants to go into coaching. It wants to still compete at this level, and having him as like a leadership figure in that team makes sense, right? Because losing Major Maniac, okay, Dave Paddy maybe doesn't have those attributes, but I think these teams at times are lacking in-game leaders, or at least, experienced veteran players that I think can be very important when you get deep in a tournament and also trying to at least be consistent, right? I mean, when you put a team of stars together, you can get some good upset results, but, maintaining that consistency, which is required if you want to qualify for champs, and of course that's Fodder's goal, really, is obviously a different story. So Fellow signing for Mutineers is really cool. It's now been confirmed by multiple sources, not been officially revealed, but that does mean that the team, we believe, is going to look as follows, with Capstol, Fellow, Brack, of course, and then Havoc staying as well. So Fellow, I guess, is going to kind of step into the flex position, Capstol and Havoc on the SMGs, and then we've got, Brack, I suppose, will be the main AR there. So I think this makes sense. Fellow not being on a full-time SMG, I think, is also maybe the way to go as well. But of course, that team is going to be pretty flexible and actually quite fast-paced in terms of roles. So I do like the direction they've taken with this roster. We know that Capstol is very much maybe a hot and cold player at times, but he had his debut last season on the Boston Breach, played incredibly well for a brief period, then was removed from the team, and there were some questions whether he'd get back in the league, but what we saw so far this season when he subbed in for Thieves, definitely a scary player to be on the other side of, and we now believe that they trialed out Dak over the last couple of days. He will get another shot as well in the Challenger side, also one of the top prospect SMGs, but Capstar, I think, has been quite clearly the guy to go for. So Brack is the main AR, Fedo is the flex, the kind of leader of the team as well, Havoc and Capstar. To me, that's a significant upgrade on what they previously had. They've got more firepower now, they've got more pace now, and their team actually just isn't full of ARs. Can you believe it? It's absolutely a magical time where even Brack as your main is, he's not exactly he's not a snail AR like some of the other ones they've had in recent memory. So I really like the direction Mutineers have taken. It might not work out. I don't think they're going to be a top 4 team or anything, but, if this team is indeed confirmed, but at least they're giving it a go. And I think this team is definitely good enough to make the World Championship, which is, of course, the real goal for the Mutineers right now, and go deep enough in tournaments to be good online and on LAN, not just sneak out Game 5 victories, to which point they can actually be a competitive force in this league, rather than basically being a meme. And there was also some talk from Jacob Hell here that Real of the Rokkr Academy got a trial, but apparently he didn't get a trial, which maybe makes sense just because at the end of the day, were they going to sign anyone that required a buyout, which Real would from Rokkr? More than likely not. So they'll sign people that are free agent, just like OpTic did, and of course had a good time doing. Now, with Fellow potentially joining the Florida Mutineers, that does leave, of course, with Ghosty going to OpTic. I thought, okay, is there a world in which that OpTic team needs a coach? I know we talked about it the last couple of days, that, at some point it feels necessary. It depends. Maybe JP can do a great job. But with 3 players, you like to go rogue a bit, plus a rookie, they've got to have some direction. Now, we know that Dashy asked Parasite for his opinion on amateur players. And I don't know, I don't reckon he was he charged a fee or anything, but, just did it as a bit of a favor. But Dashy and Parasite go way back. They seem to get along relatively well as well. And obviously, Parasite was involved to a certain extent with picking up Ghosty to the team. And then we actually get this last night where kind of Dashy's tweeting at Parasite and talking about, okay, in scrims back then we ran Forest, we were a deadly AR duo, all this type of stuff. Makes me wonder whether, I don't know what the relationship is with Parasite and OpTic. The bridges probably got burned almost a decade ago at this point, but, maybe there's a chance, right? Okay, I don't know what roles Scump would play or Hex would play in this. If Dashy was like, hey, look, I really want to bring Parasite in as our coach, I think he can help us a lot, and if Shotzzy agrees, it probably happens. So I guess we'll see on that one. But yeah, Rambo has to kind of sit there as this weird content creator GM hybrid while they bring in another coach. I don't know. I don't think this is going to happen, but just want to keep in mind. Speaking of OpTic though, let's talk iLLeY and his situation. So as he says on the 9th of February, restricted free agent, bang my line if you want to win. Now, unfortunately, the teams that are left remaining for iLLeY don't really have too much winning potential. So I don't know what iLLeY's thinking right now in terms of his future. I'm sure he kind of wants to get his revenge, right? I mean, we saw in the off-season when he was dropped initially and he replied something like, see you next year. He was obviously reality. And he even mentioned in a video, I think in the process, he was like, yeah, when I tweeted that, like I was ready to get these guys when I played them again. And, you know, I'm imagining he's got the same thoughts at the present time, having been dropped a few months later. Now, okay, where does he go? He's restricted. This is the issue for iLLeY. He's not an unrestricted free agent like Huke was from Los Angeles Guerrillas. They just like ended his contract. He can go anywhere. iLLeY is still signed to OpTic. Now, OpTic are always good generally at allowing players to move on. If they had a good offer that they want to go for, like OpTic will usually accommodate that and make sure that he's not got a ridiculous buyout or anything. Then again, can iLLeY be a valuable asset to OpTic on the bench? I think he can. You know, potentially down the line, they might need to bring him back. Who knows? Maybe they made the wrong call dropping iLLeY and want to change their mind in the future. Whether that's going to work from a team chemistry perspective, I don't know, because I think iLLeY was the one player that was the most on the fence about running it back last season, just because, you know, it seemed to take a bit of time to convince iLLeY that it was the right idea to run it back and actually that the team chem was going to be fine, and having it turn out was not fine, then doing it again is probably iLLeY's going to think at that point, like, this is for sure going to blow up at some point. So I imagine he wants to get out of there. The tricky thing is, what options are remaining? Because there's some teams that won't pay. London, they got no money. Vegas, we know what they're about. Florida, of course, they haven't got any money, but also they're not going to make a move like that given the roster we just saw. FaZe, Subliners, Thieves, Toronto, Minnesota, almost certainly, they're not making any moves. That leaves 3 teams, Breach, Guerrillas, and Surge.
So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. What's to say that OpTic doesn't keep Ender on the bench just in case, you know? The just in case. What if we need him? What if the team doesn't work out the way that we think it's going to work out? What if we just keep him on the bench, continue to pay him just in case? But then you got to think about how Ender's feeling. A, would he even want that? B, would the vibes just be completely fucking slaughtered in that camp? And then the third thing is obviously, yeah, you don't want to keep Ender on the bench. You just, I mean, that would just suck. Ender's a great player. You know, insane talent, great in-game leader, great mind for Call of Duty. But so it's either Boston, Guerrillas, or Surge, or keep him, or he's on the OpTic bench still.
There has been some discussion around the Seattle Surge here, right? The idea that, okay, maybe minus accuracy plus iLLeY could be a way to go for them, might fix some of their search and destroy issues, can still bring the leadership to the team, probably drops marginally better numbers than accuracy as well on average also. I think that can make sense. But, you know, at the same time, they don't want to make any changes. I don't really know why, but apparently they've got no interest in picking up iLLeY, according to Jacob Hale. They've also got no interest in making any changes anyway. And we'll discuss Surge later in the day again, because they're a big topic of discussion right now. That does leave, though, 2 options, Breach and Guerrillas, both of which are kind of in a tricky spot right now on Scump's tier list that he does last night. I screenshotted at a rather unfortunate time, but yeah, nonetheless, okay, Breach are okay. He put them in the B tier here, and they, of course, are getting rid of Zinni, bringing in Beans, we think. I mean, that seems like the no-brainer option, but then again, there is a world in which, like, iLLeY could potentially go in there in place of Beans, but, you know, if you're Boston, you'd surely think, okay, well, this is the perfect chance to bring Beans in. He has been our academy player, our star player on our academy for some time. Might as well give it a go. If it doesn't work out, maybe the iLLeY change happens down the line, but also on Guerrillas, right? I mean, they've got JoeDeceives, Exceed, Assault, and Arcitys. You know, that AR combo was actually working quite well, but I still feel like it's a little bit strange in terms of pacing and all this type of stuff. So maybe there's a world in which iLLeY there could be a thing, and of course, LAG have the money to accommodate that. I believe even in the off-season, it was a discussion that maybe iLLeY to LAG could have been a possibility had that move gone through that OpTic Texas were trying to do at the time. But yeah, the entire league, it's tricky for iLLeY because, as he says, like, bang my line if you want to win. The orgs that are remaining for him at the moment are probably Boston and Guerrillas, and even then, it seems kind of unlikely that that might happen. So does iLLeY want to do that move? Do OpTic want to accommodate that anyway, especially a deal like Surge? They probably don't want to accommodate if Surge were interested. Or is iLLeY better off saying, you know what, let me just wait it out for now, see what happens after Major 3, and maybe at that point a team like, you know, a Minnesota Rokkr, maybe even at Toronto if they have a hard time, might be considering changes. I'm sure iLLeY would love to be back in that facility in Toronto, right, to play on that Bell Fiber in Toronto. So, you know, obviously they're probably not going to make any changes, at least as it currently stands. But, you know, a bad Major 3 for both of these teams might mean that more opportunities arise for iLLeY, whereas right now there's not any clear options for him to join and actually be successful with. So definitely enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below last night. Did want to mention as well, because Ghosty was playing some 8s yesterday and Shotzzy was watching and having a rather good time doing so. So yeah, Ghosty, obviously this guy is cracked, there's no doubt about it. But yeah, we'll see if it can actually work out long term with this OpTic team. Definitely still a rather controversial move in the eyes of the fans. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.